Hello everybody, my name is James Bai, and today we are going to be going on an adventure to ancient Rome, where we are going to be learning about and joining the cult of Cybele. It took a lot of time to develop a plan for this video and research everything I needed to research about it to make a comprehensive and educational video for you guys. So I would really appreciate it if you could hit that like button support, because it took me hours to research this and another few hours to make this something comprehensive that you'll enjoy. It's going to be full of disturbing things and going to be lots of gore, lots of disturbing stuff here. So I just want to say, guys, don't be afraid, because we are in the cult cavern. Let's get into it. Let's go over why Cybele was such a popular religion/cult in Rome. The importation of Cybele was in 204 BC, when a black tablet representing the goddess was brought in from Asia Minor. And a lot of people thought this tablet was made from a meteor. We don't have this tablet nowadays, it's gone, but we know it was there because this is when the religion of Cybele really started. But why did Cybele blow up in popularity? Well, there's a few different theories. Henry Grailot, excuse me if I got the name wrong, says that the importation of Cybele was so popular because of a bleak stretch in the Second Punic War, where there was a lot of depression and it was very hard for the Romans. Eric Gruland, a classicist from UC Berkeley, disagrees, and he says the popularity of Cybele was due to renewed hope and vigor and recent military wins against Hannibal. But the most popular theory is actually lead poisoning. You see, not a lot of people know this, but the Romans were dealing with fertility issues because they used lead in so many of their things. For one, they used to mix lead acetate in their alcoholic drinks to make it sweeter, and they would also mix lead in medications. The Romans knew that lead was poisonous. They mostly thought that, people who worked with the pipes and stuff were the ones who would get lead poisoning. They didn't know that, for one, it caused infertility, and for two, consuming it was actually dangerous. So in the midst of this infertility issue, Cybele, a goddess of fertility, a very sexual entity, was their answer because they didn't have any other answer. So the year is 191 BC, and we were walking in Rome, me and you, my good buddy, when we see a massive temple, and we don't know what this temple is for. So we go inside and we ask a very nice looking man. He looks like a priest. He's dressed in garments, very nice garments. And I asked him, I said, hey, what's this temple for? I haven't seen it before. And he said, wow, it's awesome of you to ask, because this temple is for the goddess of Cybele. And so I asked him, I said, who is Cybele? I've never heard of this goddess. I worship Zeus. I worship all these gods, but I've never heard of Cybele. And you agreed. You said, yeah, who's Cybele? And the priest says, well, I'm very happy you asked. So let me tell you the story of Cybele. And so the priest goes on to tell us the story. And it went a little something like this. From Zeus's spilled seed, a daimon arose. They called the daimon Agdistus, and it had two sexual organs, a male and a female. But the gods, fearing Agdistus' beauty, cut off his penis. There grew up from it an almond tree, with its fruit ripe. And Sangarius, a river goddess, took the fruit and laid it in her bosom, where it at once disappeared. From this she birthed a child, a boy, who was raised by a he-goat. As he grew up, his beauty was more than human, and Cybele fell in love with him. His name was Attis. And when he had grown up, Attis was sent by his relative to Pessinos, where he would wed the king's daughter. The marriage song was being sung when Cybele appeared, and she was enraged at seeing Attis being wed. So Cybele drove him mad, and in his maddened state, Attis castrated himself, as did he who was giving his daughter in marriage. But Cybele, angered at what she had done, repented what she had done to Attis, and persuaded Zeus to grant the body of Attis should neither rot nor decay. Attis was returned his fertility. And I'm looking at you after this story like, whoa, dude, I can't believe I've never heard this before. I told the priest, wow, I can't believe I've never heard this story before. And the priest said, what do you think? Are you intrigued by Cybele's story? What do you think? And, we looked at each other. And I was like, well, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, but why is there a whole temple dedicated to that? And the priest told us that Cybele is the god of fertility and the god of the bounty from the earth. And to the priest, you said, my family having a really hard time having a child. I think my wife is infertile. And the priest smiled and he says, I've heard that many, many times. And if you pray to Cybele with us and join our religion, your wife will be fertile again, and you will have many, many children. And so the sun was setting behind the horizon, and you said, I'll think about it. We'll come back tomorrow, and we'll tell you what our decision is. And so we walked out of the temple, and I laughed at you. I was like, dude, you can't be serious. We worship Zeus, We don't worship odd gods like Cybele. That's paganism. And you looked once more at me and said, but James, I need to have a child. I need to continue my bloodline. It's very important to me. And it pains me every single day that I cannot have a child with my wife. And, I didn't feel that because I don't have a wife, I don't have a family. But one day I hope to have a family. And so I kind of understood where you were coming from. And so we were about to go our separate ways when you said once more, James, if I begin to worship Cybele, will you worship with me? And I pondered this. And I said, if you come to me early in the morning tomorrow, I will give you my answer. And so we went our separate ways, and I went to my house, and I watched you walk away in the distance. And over the night, I thought about Cybele, and I thought about what the priest had said. And I thought about the temple. It was large. It was a beautiful temple. And in my mind, I thought, what goes on at the temple of Cybele? And so the morning came, and just as I was getting on my robes, I heard a knock on my door. And my house, quiet, with no one else in it. I went to the door and opened it, and saw you there, with a bright smile on your face, ready to go. And I said, hey, what's going on? Good morning. Do you have your answer? And you looked at me and said, James, today I'm going to the temple, and we will begin to worship Cybele. My wife is here with me. We're going to go together. Will you come? And, he came to me in the morning, and I thought long and hard about this. And I said, yes, I'll go with you. I will see what this is about. I cannot give you my word that I will stay, but I will give you my word that I will go. And so we went. And so we walked to the temple, you holding hands with your wife. And we walked in, and the same priest was there. And he looked very happy to see us, a smile on his face. He said, hey, you've come back. Have you decided to worship Cybele? We're so happy to see you. And you answered first. You shook his hand, and you said, yes, I'm so excited, I really would love to have a child. And if Cybele can do that for me, then I will worship her till the end of my days. And so the priest looked at me and he said, are you joining him? And I said, I'm just here to watch today. I'm not too sure yet. I don't have a family. I don't have a wife. And I'm just here to watch to see what this is all about. And so the priest smiled and said, that's perfectly fine. And so he led us into a back room and he said, to join, you must go through an initiation, a rite of passage. And you said, what is that? I'll do anything. And he said, we call this the Torobolium. And it's a it's a sacred rite of passage. And today, with me and the other priestesses, we will go and we will do the Torobolium for you. And he looked at me and he said, James, you can just watch and see what you think. And I asked the priest, what is your name? My name is Decimus. Thank you for asking. And so we walked back out into the pews of the temple, and I'm talking to you, and I'm like, are you sure you want to do this? I mean, this looks like some serious shit. I looked at your wife. I said, what do you think about this? You've been so quiet. And your wife said this to me. She said, I will do anything to have a child with my beloved. And so we waited there for a couple hours. You were already praying to Cybele, even though you don't really know who she is. You're just kind of praying to her. And Decimus comes out once more, and he's like, come on, let's go. And so we followed Decimus, and we followed him across a field of some sort where many trenches were dug with these, grates over them. And Decimus handed you a shovel. He handed your wife a shovel as well. And there were a few other priestesses out there. I noticed that he was the only male priest there. It looked like mostly women. And so the priest says to you, okay, begin to dig your trench. And without question, you went and you dug your trench. And I'm standing there watching you. And I'm talking to the priest, just having a little small talk. And after a few hours, your trench was done, as was your wife's. And so Decimus said next, okay, get in your trench. And so your wife and you hopped in the trench, and the priest brought a grate, and he put it over your trenches. And I'm very intrigued now, like what is gonna go on? And so two priestesses leave. They go to a fenced-in place with a few bowls in them. So they bring the bowls above both of your grates, and the priestesses then slaughter the bowls right over your grate. And at first I heard you, well, what the fuck is going on here? And your wife too, almost screaming. And the blood from the bowl drips down this grate and soaks you in blood. And I was like, whoa, what the fuck, dude? This is crazy. I've never seen this before. And the priest calms me down and he says, this is just the initiation, okay? We slaughter bulls as a sacrifice and we castrate them. And so I was like, what, castrate? And before I could even look, before I could say anything, the priestesses had chopped off the bull's genitals, opened the grate, and thrown them in there on you. Bloody genitals, while you're soaked in blood. And so the priestesses now say, in a few minutes, when you are soaked in blood, you will crawl out of this hole and you will drink the milk of the bull. And of course, I'm almost laughing at this point. Like, what the fuck, dude? And the priest said to me, why are you being so close-minded? Cybele can change people's lives, and I've seen it. She changed mine. Watch, and you will be changed too. And so that shut me up pretty good, so I started watching. And after a while, the priestesses directed you to climb out of your trench. And you and your wife suckled the teats of the bull and drank his milk. And the priest went over to you, as with the priestesses, and they said in unison, you are now rebirthed. Cybele welcomes you. And I saw that you two now were laughing in pleasure. And the priest said loudly, tonight we will have a festival, and you all are invited, and you can come too, James, and we will have the greatest of times with Cybele watching over us. And so you two, emphatic, it looked like you two had been enlightened, laughing with joy, hugging each other. And you said to me, James, are you coming to the festival? And I was like, yeah, you know what? I will go to this festival. And you know what? Initiate me right now. I was convinced. And so the priest, smiling, said, James, welcome to the religion. Dig your trench. So I dug my trench, and I had the bull's blood drip down all over me, covered me in blood. And I laughed when the genitals of the bull were thrown into my pit. And I climbed out of the pit, sucked the teats of the bull, and felt enlightened. And so the night came, and so did the festival. We were directed up a mountain where we followed the priest, we followed the priestesses, and many other people having emphatic conversations. Looked like they were ready to have a good time. And I was too. I was intrigued at what was going to go on. Obviously, you're by my side, your wife following closely behind you. And so as we were going up to the mountain, I could already hear the chants. Evo, saluv, highest atis highest. Evo, saluv, highest atis highest. And these chants, they made me feel good. I almost started chanting with them. And eventually we get to the top of the mountain and we see a large fire and people dancing and people chanting and the music of kettle drums and many other instruments combined, making a beautiful melody. But when I looked to my left, I saw something quite horrid. In the dead of night, I saw two people having sex, one being flagellated. And this shocked me, and it shocked you too. And I went to Decimus, I said, what is going on here? Is this an orgy? And he said, yes, this is an orgy. It was quite a clever observation of you. And my heart sunk for a second. But then it rised back again, knowing that I was under the watch of the great goddess Cybele. And so we had a great time that night at the festival, singing, dancing, chanting. And so at the end of the festival, the priest Decimus, along with many other priestesses, pulled us to the side. He said, now is time for your real initiation. And I said, wait, I thought we were already initiated. And he said, James, you can be initiated here too. This is the real thing. This is what really happens. And so I said, okay, I don't really know what's happening though. I don't know if I'm ready for this. It sounded like he was quite serious. And out of nowhere, the priest lifted up his robe and I gasped. He had cut off his penis. He no longer had a penis. He castrated himself. And you looked in horror. What? And the priest said, to be part of Cybele, you must put your fertilization in the hands of the goddess and castrate yourselves. And I was very surprised. But Decimus was a very great man, and I knew I had to do it. And you knew too. And so he handed us castration clamps, and he said, I will turn around. And together, we cut off our penises. And it was the worst pain I've ever felt. Me and you standing there in agony, our penises laying on the ground. And as we leaked our blood, the priest and the priestesses turned around and they said, the Virgin, in her heavenly place, rides upon the lion, bearer of the corn, inventor of the law, founder of cities, by whose gift it is a man's good lot to know the gods. And they said that over and over again. And in my pain, I smiled, knowing I was in good company, and the rest of my life had begun. And so the priestesses bandaged us up, and they said, now you will be introduced to your fraternity. There were two different fraternities, the tree bearers and the reed bearers, dendrophori and conophori, respectively. And he said, you two and your wife will be in the same fraternity, because we know you share a deep bond. And you and I hugged and said, the rest of our life has begun. The rest of our life has begun. You said, James, thank you so much for doing this with me. I know only good will arise from it. I can feel Cybele looking down on us in pleasure, in fertility, and I know she will birth us our child, and I know she will further our friendship. And so the priest, now our good friend, said, you will both be conophori, because I know conophori, the beginning. And once you are experienced in reed bearing, you will then be moved on to tree bearing. He said, the next time we shall meet and the next time we will have an orgy, Magnlesia. It is on the 4th of April and ends on the 10th of April. Please join us there and come to the temple whenever you need. We both thanked Decimus, and your wife said, I would like to sleep in the temple tonight with the priestesses. And you said, okay, that's fine, but we're going to go back. And so we left and we head back to our houses. And I don't know about you, but I felt amazing. I got drunk as a skunk, even drunker than I was at the festival, and had an amazing night by myself with no penis. I had no penis anymore, and it made me feel great. It made me feel like the great hermaphrodite Attis. I felt beautiful. I knew that night the priestesses were celebrating the secrets of Cybele behind closed doors. And I knew I would never hear these secrets, and the world would never know the greatness of Cybele. And so 2 months passed by, and it was now Magnlesia. And at the festival, we watched many other initiates being castrated. Many women came, and they had their own initiation rite. It was quite different from the men. They would do the thing with the bulls where they would sacrifice, but behind closed doors, they wouldn't tell us what they did to the women, because obviously they couldn't castrate them. And so we had a great time at this festival, me and you carrying reeds to the streets. We carried reeds to the sacred caves, Cybele. And Decimus, our good friend now, came up to us. And he said, I hope you will join us on the 25th of March to commemorate the death and castration of Attis. And us knowing the story very well, we said, of course we'll be there. Your wife agreed as well. She said, of course we'll be there, and we will mourn, and we will sorrow for our great god Attis and his wife Cybele. And so eventually the 25th of March came, and it was 3 days of sorrow, 3 days of weeping for our god Attis and its wife Cybele. But then after those 3 days, it was Hilaria. And the priest told us, Decimus told us what was going on. And for Hilaria, it was a massive festival to commemorate the resurrection and the return of his fertility. And so we had a great time. And obviously, us being Canafori, carried the reeds through the street, and we got drunk and had an amazing time chanting with the rest of our crew, enjoying our lives, knowing that Cybele was watching over us. But little did we know, the higher-ups, the elite of Rome, were looking down on us. They hated our religion. They saw us as paganists and idiots who drank too much and ran through Rome causing ruckus. And we didn't know this, but the highest priests did know. And they knew they had to somehow convert the elite of Rome to believe in the religion, or else it would be gone forever. And so, again, your wife slept at the temple, praying to Cybele to heal her infertility and to make her have a child. Well, we walked with Decimus, and he told us some things. And we walked to one of the sacred caves where no one else was there, and he told us that the elites of Rome were looking down, and that if we kept having these rowdy festivals, they would put a kibosh to our whole operation. And me and you, we almost shed tears. We had castrated ourselves for this. What would we do if it was gone? We would be lunatics. We would be heretics. We would be hermits living in the sheds, living in the caves, with not even a penis to keep us company. And so the years went by, and we saw many more be castrated, and soon you were turned into a priest, my good friend, and I was very happy for you. But me, I would always be a reed bearer. I never wanted more. I hadn't found a wife, but Cybele was as close as I would ever get. And Attis was a beautiful, beautiful person who I would love forever. And so the years went by, and we tried our hardest to convince the elite Roman conservatives that our religion was great. And we told them that our religion may be the oldest religion of all time. It was thousands of years old, and Cybele was bringing her gifts to the world. And we told him of the river that gushed from the dry mountain. And we told him of the animals that would come and say their thanks to us while we worshipped. And the Romans, we were Romans too, but the elite eventually caved. And our religion was eventually added to the Roman pantheon. Eventually, me and you, growing old now, we passed away. And the religion persisted. So we are back in 2024, guys. And yes, I have my penis now, and you do too. I would never castrate myself for a cult, okay? Let's talk about this cult a little bit. Talk about some things I didn't go to in the story. For one, these festivals were not just fun and games. A lot of, new priests would actually castrate themselves while in the midst of sexual pleasure. So they would be, having sex with someone and literally chop their cock off as they were having sex with someone, which is something horrific. Another thing is that there were head priests and lower priests. The head priests were called archigallus. I'm not too sure how to pronounce it. And the, lower priests were called the Gallai, Gallai. And so, yes, the religion persisted for a while because of Rome's fertility issue. And eventually, before the end of the religion, a lot of Roman emperors joined. And there's some famous stories about, very prominent Romans joining the religion and praying to Cybele and actually, winning a lot of battles. For one, there's Heracles and Orpheus, who, after their initiation, attained success in all the campaigns they ever went on after their initiation. And they said that was because the gods appeared to them, Cybele appeared to them. And eventually, the initiatory rite was actually sought after in the Roman world because of the word of all these gifts and the word of Heracles and Orpheus. And, it was proven that after they joined this, they won all the battles they fought in. They were generals. And a quote from an ancient Roman goes like this. The goddess, once invoked, observed the ritual sacrifice with pleasure. The mountain had once been dry, but now, with no digging, gushed out for them on the thirsty peak. Which is pretty insane. I mean, if this stuff is real, then, that'd be crazy to me, but obviously, it's just, who knows? It was just something the Romans made up to get their fertility back. And it was actually something made up very, 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 a lot of years ago, but the Romans converted it into something they would be okay with, because back when the Phalangians were doing it, it was a lot more sexual, it was a lot more, not formal, a lot more killing, a lot more sacrifices. And the Romans were sophisticated people, so the first people who brought Cybele to Rome had to kind of change up the rituals to make it okay for the Romans. And the Greeks also took part in this religion. This didn't just stay with Rome. It spread everywhere. And so what happened? What was the end of Cybele? Why don't we hear about it anymore? Emperor Theodosius I eventually put an end to the religion when he declared that there would be no more pagan religions on the turf of Rome. This happened sometime between 379 and 395 when he reigned. But still, it persisted until the early 4th century. And the reason Cybele was brought to all places in Rome because of a prophecy. We don't know the prophecy word for word, but we know there was some type of prophecy with the black stone. Another festival they had was every winter, the cult participated in Tristitia, which means sadness in Latin, where they would bang drums through the streets and, just have a good time. The reed bearers carried their reeds, the tree bearers carried their trees, and they would basically have like a controlled riot. And that's why the Romans at first looked down on them, because they were, very unruly people. It was the start of a cult, the first really cult that I can remember. And I think it's very interesting. But that's going to be it for today, guys. I hope you really enjoyed this video. Again, it took a lot of work, took a lot of effort, and it was hard to kind of put it in a manner that made sense. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Just remember, I'm just starting out here, and I know it's very unprofessional, but I'm trying my best, and I really hope you guys enjoyed. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate you. Leave a like, subscribe, and we are now leaving the cult cavern. I hope you had a great time. See you in the next one.